So you take the level cap, the number of the max level cap in the game, you divide it by 2, and then you multiply it by the amount of pay to win items it has in the cash shop, and then you take and then what you do is you take the
It's a
square root of that
formula?
number. Yeah, you take the square root of that number, all right, by the amount of players, the population, and then you divide that again by the number of devs it has, and then it gives you the number that you actually need to give in to play the game.
It is time
What's next, Dad?
once again
What's next
for
on
the
the
main
list?
story
What are you
quest,
doing,
where the
Dad?
Trinity Bros give you their MMO opinions.
I'm okay with that. This is funny. It is funny, but yeah. All right, time for some Trinity Bro opinions with the Trinity main story quest. Okay, so I was listening, as I always do, weekly to the Massively OP podcast with Justin and Bree, and it was interesting. They mentioned about spending some time in some games. Good example, apparently Guild Wars 2 or 1. I had a free weekend. I don't know how it's free. It's already a free game. I don't know. But anyways, the idea of spending some time in a game. And of course, then I try to think about the fact that, wait a minute, a brand new game comes out. Let's say like Crowfall, which came out, or even now coming up New World. You know, I'm thinking there's got to be, it's like could be a minimum amount of time that one should spend in a game prior to saying, all right, this is bad. This is trash. I'm out of here. Obviously, if you hit a game and you get into it and you've put money onto it, you're like, I'm going to take some investment, at least part of playing the game a little bit because I put money into the game. And so I want to try to get most out of it. I got to see get past some of these bad signs, maybe some of these open world or the brand new beginning. You always hear stories, people say, oh, yeah, if you're going to watch The Walking Dead, skip season 1. I'm like, what? Why did anybody even watch that show if you got to skip it, you know? If you want to watch Star Trek Voyager, skip the first 3 seasons. Like, wait, what? Well, I don't know what. You know, it's like one of those things where it's like, you know, what happened to the whole picture type thing. So I don't know if games are the same way, but so I was thinking about the fact that, you know, I would think that it's got to be, I don't know if it's an hour or maybe it's an hour thing. It almost feels like you should at least spend, say, 20 hours in a game to get a feel for it before you decide to jettison it, or at least start winding it down. Especially at a game like New World coming out, or even Crowfall. I've not spent 20 hours yet in Crowfall yet. Like I said, I'm doing other things, but I need to. I kickstarted it. I paid for it, but I paid for it years ago. I'm like, it's one of those things where I didn't buy it this year, so it didn't come out of this year's funds. It came out of like my funds like 8 years ago, and so therefore it's already sunk costs. It's one of the things where you see in the working world where people say, well, there's no savings in making a change. So why is that? It's sunk in costs. You know, if you do it brand new, then it's a brand new cost. You know, it's like, okay, fine. You know, anyways, Solomon, since you had nothing to say for the daily quest, what is your opinion about like a minimum number of hours you should play an MMO before you jettison it?
You know.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
So you take the level cap, the number of the max level cap in the game, you divide it by 2, and then you multiply it by the amount of pay to win items it has in the cash shop, and then you take and then what you do is you take the
It's a
square root of that
formula?
number. Yeah, you take the square root of that number, all right, by the amount of players, the population, and then you divide that again by the number of devs it has, and then it gives you the number that you actually need to give in to play the game.
Okay, I'm glad I'm recording this so I can memorize the equation later, okay? So
No,
apparently
I
there's an
don't.
equation to it.
Yeah, like to everything.
I
I
mean,
think
Matt. Yeah,
the
okay.
game. So, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, your turn. Back on you now.
So I think you could probably split how much time you want to spend on the game in 2 tiers. One, if it's free to play, and second, if it's not. I believe what you said. I totally completely agree with what you said about
Good
the sunk cost
point.
fallacy. Um, but here's the thing though: if you're gonna sink your time into a free to play game, and you only sink an hour into it, and that's all you could tolerate, like so be it. You know, it's like whatever. It's the game clearly didn't captivate you. It didn't capture your attention, right? But then at the same time though, I don't think you could completely trash the game just based upon an hour. You could say, I think it's a valid say, yeah, I gave the game a try. It didn't hook me. I don't have any interest in playing in it. Therefore, to me, in my opinion, it's a bad game. And I think that's a reasonable thing to say. But if you're playing a game that costs 20, 30, or even $100, maybe you bought like the super ultimate collector's edition and stuff like that. I think that's probably gonna skew your opinion of the game. And I get that, not everybody could be 100% unbiased. You're always gonna have some sort of bias, and no matter how objective you try to be. I get that. But yeah, I guess if you're really gonna sink that much cash into a game and you end up hating it, then I probably will have a more easier time listening to you because like you're actually somebody who wanted to like the game. That's why you spent so much money on it and end up hating it. I think that speaks volumes to say some random person that's just like, like lukewarm about things, right? Because I mean, I don't want to make it biblical. What's the one thing that, Christ apparently hates is lukewarm Christians, right? I know I'm totally taking that out of context, not even necessarily even a great analogy to this, but it's just like when you see somebody who is clearly wanting to love the game but didn't like it, or if you see somebody who clearly hates the game but ends up loving it, I think that of in itself speaks more volumes to of a really informative opinion than just reading a review on IGN or GameSpot saying, "Oh yeah, I should try this game. These are the pros and the cons, and why you should play or shouldn't play and stuff like that." So I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. But I'm probably going off topic more so than anything else because the question is how much time you should spend with the game before you judge it. Again, I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier. Play as much as you could tolerate it, but it's just as for judging it, again, yeah, I think 20 hours is a pretty solid answer for any game. But then again, the attention span for a lot of people have been dwindling. And so if you're going to review a game, I don't think it's really fair to review, say, an older game like Aeon Online or WoW in a 2021 lens because it was just a completely different demographic. So yeah, so two things, One, is it pay to win or is it pay to play? Two, when was the game made? And if you could I uh come off like with a solid opinion from those two aspects, I think yeah, you could make a more informative decision.
Well said. As you're talking, I was thinking about the fact that I paid a bunch of money for my Fallout 4 Fallout
Right?
76 collector's edition thing, and I
And you
don't
wanted to
regret.
like the game.
I wanted the game, and I don't regret it because I have the helmet,
That's
and
true.
I probably have not sunk enough time into the game to get out of it what I put into it, But you're right about the fact that free to play is far different. That one is just more like try it. If you're not liking it, get out of it. It's not worth it. But that's a good sunk cost side of things. My only other thing I should make sure to phrase it in a way the fact that you're wondering if it's fair to the devs who go ahead and just try it for an hour, But then again, if the devs aren't giving me a game that I like, that's on them, not on me,
Mhm. Right.
SirJahzeal, so what do you think about putting time and effort into a game? How much time is it, or is there one?
Are we talking about for reviewing a game?
It's just well, it's more of just playing the
'Cause
game. I threw in review too
well,
because it's like almost like your personal review or like how you as a player you get a game. How much time should you think about putting into it before you get out of it?
for well, just in general, I would say I agree with Solomon that there are some games that you get a pretty good feel for what they are because they're so copy and paste from other games.
That's true. That's so
um,
true.
yeah, it's. I keep saying Asian market stuff on here. I'm gonna get in trouble eventually, but especially a lot of the games that come out of
Not
China
unless it's true. Not
for
unless it's
sure.
true.
Well, it is in general. There's a lot of copy paste stuff or just reskins of games, especially in the mobile market. Although we all kind of agree that
That's true though. That's absolutely
uh,
true. Like look at all the gotcha games on the mobile. It's so
right
true. I mean, I don't think
that
you yeah, there's nothing wrong with what you
that
said.
when you've played one, you've not necessarily played them all, but you recognize when you're playing another one that was like the last one you played, right? And so I don't think that giving a review of it or giving your 2 cents on Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube about it is necessarily that you only gave it an hour is necessarily a bad thing when you state, hey, this was just like da 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 game that I reviewed 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago or whatever. Um, and you explain that, hey, it's just the same game. So if you like it, then you'll probably like this. If you didn't, you're not going to like this, especially with the gotcha mechanics. All that kind of stuff really irks me. And I probably can't play more than an hour of it, honestly. Now, as far as a game that I've purchased, I always look at it. I do look at it in hours spent, especially if I didn't really care for it. I look at it like, okay, I spent $60 on it. How many movies could I have gone to see, and how long are movies on average? So on average, movies 2 hours. Again, here comes another formula. Movies on average, hour and a half. Well, it's actually an hour and a half to 2 hours usually, but we'll give it 2 hours because I watch a lot of fantasy and sci-fi that tend to run 2 to 3 hours. Just type of movies I enjoy, I guess.
Right.
And how much do I spend on a ticket for those? Well, back in the day, it used to be $5, but now it's like 15 if you buy some popcorn and maybe you can get a drink with that $15. Probably not. And how many times does that go into the $60, 70, 80, 90, 100, whatever I paid for that? And then I go, okay, did I get that many hours out of it? And if I did, then I go, well, I've spent money buying tickets for movies that I walked out of the theater and I didn't like them. I was like, wow, that was $15 down the toilet, that movie was terrible. And I've also, rented movies that weren't that great in the end, and I felt kind of bummed that I paid for it and didn't go to a Russian or Chinese site that I could watch it for free. But anyway, um, but as far as reviewing goes, like a decent game, I would say like you at least need to put in a decent work day, which is 8 to 10 hours, at least before you have a good grasp of what's going on. Now, this is a good game I'm talking about from that's got unique features and it is definitely not a copy paste job. It doesn't have the gotcha mechanics and whatnot. I do want to feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of it, and I also, if I'm going to be reviewing it, want to know that I'm not just talking out my rear end. I want to know that know what I'm talking about and can express to everyone the mechanics of the game, what it's about, the lore, if there's any, how the PvP works, how PvE works, what there is to do at end game, which that's another sticker because you're probably not going to get to end game in 8 hours, right? So if I'm going to be really wanting to cover it, the more hours you sink into it, the better. But if you're trying to be time sensitive, like most of us content creators are, because we want to be the first, or at least among the first people to review it, you don't really want to wait more than 1 or 2 days, right? You definitely want to be on the day after release, have some kind of content up for people to watch, or you're going to just be in the pile. And it's going to be less likely that people are going to even digest your content. So,
Know that feeling.
yeah, yeah, that probably. I'm sorry.
I'm just
Yeah, you have to be on it, man. And so I would say 8 to 10, maybe 12 hours if you don't have any kids or a wife or anything at home. You're living in mama's basement, she's paying rent, then you're probably good. You could probably get 12 hours out before you make your content. But your viewers are going to appreciate it because they're going to say this guy or gal knows what they're talking about. They played it. They didn't just, play on it for 30 minutes and then go, oh, It's just like, wow, okay, you actually, and I appreciate that. Just like MMO Bite, and there's several of them. I could name a whole bunch of them that they'll play a game for like a week and then they'll put up something and go, okay, this is the ins and outs of it. And unless it's garbage, complete garbage, and then they'll just get right on it and be like, this game barely works. And I appreciate that too, because then I don't have to waste my money or my time downloading something that's not going to work.
That's a very good point too. I kind of did a quick calculation saying $60 for a game. Let's assume it's $5 for a movie ticket. $5 Tuesday. So yeah, you times that by 2 hours per movie. Okay, you're up to 24 hours. So 24 hours, one day.
Yeah.
We said 20 hours. So 24 hours is the equivalence of putting money into it and getting something out of it. Assuming you didn't fall asleep during the movie or walk out of it. I mean, I almost walked out of Green Knight. I said, I'm going to stay, watch the end, see what's happening, what I miss. I'm going to get something out of that. But yeah, so yeah, it's a good 24 hours. So there you go. Makes a sense. Okay, that was it for our main story quest. Time now to go to our escort quest. Check out the further adventures of Kennethan by liking and subscribing and watching me live on twitch.tv/Kennethan.